Excellent. Okay. And everybody can hear me, I believe. Right? Good evening, everyone. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. Apologies. I was coming from Lower Manhattan. So I'm glad I made it here in as much time as I did. And as I said, I apologize for running late. I hope everybody's doing well. As you guys know, I like to always say Happy Friday Eve. So um, I hope everybody's well. And we're also beginning the summer, as we literally had the summer equinox happen a few days ago. So there you go. I want to record who's on the line for attendance purposes, and then we'll jump into the agenda. This will be our last meeting for the summer, so I want to make sure everybody is aware of that, the task force anyway. If we get any applications that come to us over the summer, then we'll hold a special task force session because we don't want to lose out on the opportunity to engage with anybody from the community who comes before us. But technically, the board takes off time during the summer to recharge and to refresh. So I just wanted to make sure I share that with everybody who's on. Now I'm trying to see if I can tell 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, I guess then that's it. All right, hopefully more people will join us, but we will begin. So good evening, everyone. As you all know by now who I am, but for the purposes of the recording, my name is Monique Hardin Cordero. I am the co-chair of the Community Board 9 Cannabis Task Force. And once again, I want to welcome you. Shantae could not be here this evening with us, but she sent her regards. And of course, I will keep her abreast of what we discussed today. So that's the welcome. I'm going to call the meeting to order. And we're going to call it to order at, what time is it?
6:40.
6:40?
8.
Okay. And since it's I and you, Ashley, I'm going to adopt the agenda, which is not that long. And I don't know if you guys had a chance to review the minutes, but if there are no, I guess, questions or concerns about the minutes, I would like to move forward with adopting the minutes as well. Okay, everyone? I don't see, did you print them out?
Well,
The minutes?
yeah.
Oh, they're right here. No, this is the letter, I don't see the minutes. So,
Yeah.
okay, is somebody speaking to me?
Yes, me, Carolyn. I was saying
Yes, Carolyn?
yeah, they were attached to,
Okay, thank you, Carolyn, for confirming.
yeah.
Did you fill it?
I only got 8.
Maybe I should have been a part of the 8.
Yeah, you're right.
Well, you guys got them, but maybe we didn't print them out. So, which is fine, because I know what they say. But a few,
Yeah, I did miss out. Apologies.
okay. The minutes are pretty straightforward, so I won't spend a lot of time on them unless there are questions. The main takeaway from that particular meeting in May was we had a presentation from Dr. Henson, who spoke about medical cannabis, and I believe the PowerPoint has been sent to you from that presentation. And I don't know if any of you attended that session. If you didn't, I would encourage you to look at the recording. That session was recorded, correct? Okay. So
I'm looking for the hand raised, Monique. This is Heather Jason speaking. I was in attendance, but I don't see my name in the minutes.
oh, Okay, Heather, then we'll make that correction.
Yeah.
I apologize for that. I believe also, okay, minutes. I believe also I see Randy's name is on here. Randy, I believe you were at that session as well?
He must be gone.
I don't, well, Randy's name is up there, so maybe he stepped away. Okay, we'll make sure that the name, your name, Heather, and Randy's name are added to the minutes from May.
And
That's
then
why-
I would also just caution that you not refer to people as public members because public member means is a specific term in our bylaws.
You are
And so
absolutely,
you've been referring to people as public members when they have not met the guidelines to become public members according to our bylaws.
that is true. I will refer to them as residents, because they are residents.
Or guests
Yes, yeah.
at the meeting.
Fair enough. I appreciate that. For this set of, for the May minutes, I'll make that correction. Thank you. Okay. With those friendly amendments, we'll move along in terms of the adoption of the minutes. And in terms of looking at today's agenda, updates, the, last time, I believe Chante had mentioned to you that we were going to be sending a letter of comment regarding proposed updates by the Office of Cannabis Management regarding Part 113, which focuses on medical cannabis, the medical cannabis program regulations. There were a few things that were, there were quite a few things related to those regulations, and there were about 6 recommendations we had submitted, I believe 6, and then there was a 7th one added based on feedback at our general meeting. Specifically, the feedback pertained to the concern about the ages of people who are providing support to patients who need to access medical cannabis and their caretakers. I know the Office of OCM had changed the regulations to make it easier easier for a medical patient to access cannabis by having a caretaker. Instead of being the age of 21, the age was, they had proposed reducing it down to 18. We had presented this letter of comment at the general meeting, and there were suggestions that the age not be lowered. So that was added as a part of the letter of comment that the age should be kept at 21 instead of reducing it down to the age of 18. So the letter of comment, I believe, is about, 4 pages? Close to 4 pages? Yeah, 4 pages. So hopefully you read the letter. For those who are on, the letter was sent to the Office of Cannabis Management, and we'll see whether or not they will adopt some of those comments. I'm sure we're not the only community board that sent them, but I think we're the most prolific in terms of our responses. So we'll see if the Office of Cannabis Management will take our recommendations. So, hi Randy, how are you? Okay. You're on mute, but that's okay. I saw you say hi.
How are you? How's everything?
Everything is well, thank you, thank you.
Wonderful. Hi to everybody.
Yeah, very good. I said to everybody, happy Friday Eve. So
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much.
The other letter in here, after discussion and the presentation from, in fact, Randy at the task force meeting and also at our general meeting, was a letter of support regarding his team applying for the legal license. So that letter was submitted to the Office of Cannabis Management as well. And, once again, OCM makes the decision as to whether or not they will grant the license, but we sent a letter of support. We also listed a bunch of different things that were discussed at the, meeting. So, there you go. The letter has been sent, and I'm sure if Randy, is granted a license, he'll let us know.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. So
Monique,
those are-
my hand has been up. Can I just make a comment, please? I
Those
don't
are
want to
updates.
interrupt.
Yes, sorry, Heather.
Yeah, I just wanted to
Right.
thank you. I wanted to thank you for including my comments that I made regarding the age being of 21, regarding that letter of submission that you sent into OCM. And then also, I just want to also caution this particular committee that we should be, when we're writing letters, that we should include all comments or all sides of the discussion and just not narrow it based on, a particular point of view. We should incorporate all points of views.
Okay, fair enough. I thought we did actually, but I believe, so I thought we did, but your point has been taken. And I know certainly when presenting, the majority of the members of the board voted in favor of supporting the license. But the goal is always to try to provide
It should be
information on
balanced.
both sides, which is why
Yeah,
we
when
have
we write. Yeah, I don't see the comments that I made, but that's okay. I'm just going to, moving forward, I'm going to continue to voice my concerns so that it's balanced.
Okay.
I appreciate everyone's opinions, and I think everyone's voice should be heard. And I think that the applicants should have the opportunity to speak and answer our questions without interference from anyone on the board. Everything should be
Okay.
transparent.
Yeah.
Right.
Thank you.
Yes, I agree, Heather. That's why we have people come to the board and to share and for questions to be asked, and that will continue to happen. So, no worries.
Well, that didn't happen at the last general board meeting as far as I was concerned. And
Okay.
I'm just
Yeah.
publicly
Heather?
stating that should not occur, that all board members and everyone should have the right to ask questions and for those questions to be answered by the applicant, not
Very good.
anyone from the board.
Okay. Well, I hear you, Heather, and we won't relitigate what happened at the general meeting. We're going to focus on what's happened here now, and the goal is always to make sure that all sides are heard. Carolyn?
Yeah, I was just reading the minutes and realized I was supposed to submit something.
Yeah.
Them articles, and what I wondered, is there a way that I could put them in something so people could look at them, because there are quite a few. I don't want to fill up everybody's box. Is there like a I don't know.
So Carolyn, I mean, once again, you could share the articles with me, and we could send it as in a file, so that it's compressed. I don't know how many articles you're wanting to send, but we can make sure it gets out. When we do this set of minutes, we can include them in this set of minutes that will go out as we conclude the board year.
Because I think they can go in Google Docs too. If it's in Google Docs, people can just look at it or whatever. It doesn't fill up their own mailbox.
Okay. So yeah, just
Okay. I'll work on that because I forgot that.
yeah, just make sure, when you get a chance, send it to me. My goal would be to get the minutes out before the end of the month, which is not actually that much time, is it?
No, it's
That's
not.
like next week.
Uh-huh.
But
Yeah.
that would be the goal.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you. Okay. So, in terms of presentations, this evening we have a presenter who's on, and she'll show herself. Her name is Dashida Dawson, and Dashida, you're gonna introduce yourself in terms of your role as it relates to Wave Holistic Health, and also your other role in terms of your work in the community, so that everybody who's on board. And right now, you know, we have some members from the community, residents from Community Board 9, and then we also have some of our community partners on. Geraldine, I'm not sure, are you a community on Board 9 resident?
Jerry? No.
Is she part of the
She's
is
across
she
the
a
street. Yeah,
resident?
she's in our block association.
Okay, no problem. Um, so I just wanted to give Deshita a sense of who's on the Zoom, and I'm glad you guys could join us. The goal is always to encourage people to come out and to hear the information that we're looking to share. So with that said, Deshita, like I said, you'll introduce yourself, and we will permit you to share your presentation. Okay? So are you
Awesome. I think I already practiced the share screen, so I should be able to do it.
Oh, very,
Yes,
very good.
I did that
And
in
we
the
have
early
some,
stages.
of course, now we have a little bit of background music. Hopefully, it won't be too much of a distraction.
Oh
Okay.
no, I'm used to it actually. As I share
No,
more about my background.
I'm actually kidding. That wasn't the music. All right, so now they're gone. So without further ado, Deshita, the floor is yours. And while Deshita is looking to pull up her presentation, once again, at every meeting, or almost at every meeting, and excuse me for giving you my back, Leo, we are, you know, always trying to not only talk just about legal recreational use of cannabis, but also of the medical cannabis and its use and benefits. And that's what Dr. Henson spoke about last month. And now today, another concern I should say that has come up is the lack or no presence of medical cannabis providers in Community Board 9. That means if people are, if people need to and have an interest in obtaining medical cannabis, they have to go down to Midtown, as far as I believe is correct. That's the nearest place to go, unless they want to go over the bridge to New Jersey, which is a very big inconvenience. And so, in staying in the same vein in terms of addressing a number of different concerns and issues, or having questions, today we're looking to hear from Deshita and her program that she's opening up, and maybe look at the issue of medical cannabis provider in Community Board 9. So, with that said, Deshita, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you, Monique. Again, my name is Deshita Dawson. I am a co-founder and CEO of Wave Holistic Health. And this is just going to be my first introduction to you. I imagine that you will see me multiple times if we're able to continue to move forward. Hopefully you can see the screen that I'm sharing. Just a thumbs up from you all if you can see it. Perfect.
We see it here. Can you
All
guys
right.
see it online?
Okay, awesome.
Okay. I see
So
heads
because
now.
I'm sharing screen on my laptop, what I will say is if you have a question, I only have 12 slides, so we can definitely answer them at the end. And if you want to put it in the chat, that way you can have it. I will take a look at the chat at the end. I'm unable to see it at this point while I do the presentation though.
Well, if
So
I see a question, and if I can read it to you, I will. I'll ask Leo to help me as well.
okay, but again, only 12 slides. If we could hold the questions to the end, it makes it a little bit easier. But again, this is, I think, a first of many times that I will be in front of you all. And grateful again for Community Board 9 doing the additional work of creating a cannabis task force. And as I share a little bit more about myself, you'll know why. I am the former founding executive director of Cannabis NYC. I was appointed by Mayor Eric Adams in 2022 to oversee the development of the legal cannabis industry for the city of New York. I worked very closely with the state Prior to that, I was the city of Portland in Oregon's cannabis lead, doing the same job with the addition of also licensing and compliance work for all of the licenses in that market. So I am very much familiar with the process. And again, not a lot of community boards did the extra work. And it was Community Board 9 and Community Board 10. I did a couple of presentations for 10 as well. So again, thank you so much for just the work that you all are doing around cannabis. Now, WAVE is really all about wellness without waiting. I've been feeling ever since I came back to the East Coast from the West Coast that our communities have largely been waiting for medical cannabis to roll out the way that it should have. We are a licensed, New York State licensed, vertically integrated medical cannabis company, and that's our intention. And our goal is to build New York's next chapter in community centered wellness with cannabis as our focus.
Dashita, can you explain what vertically integrated is very
Sure.
quickly?
It just means that we get permission to cultivate, to process and manufacture, to distribute, and to dispense or at retail. We get up to 4 retail locations in the state that are approved under this one license. And I share in a couple other slides a little bit more history and information. So sometimes there's a little bit of confusion between the medical side and the adult use side. So I do make sure that you all know that by the end of the presentation as well. So our mission is really very clear. We think that medical cannabis is a basic right, not a privilege reserved for those with access. And as was mentioned, CB9, along with a lot of other New York City community, do not have access to medical cannabis while they are having access to adult use. We are a Black-owned New York licensed vertically integrated company, like I said, and we're on a mission to deliver to these same communities premium, affordable wellness products, multilingual patient education, and community-centered care. And we want to do this for New Yorkers in an existing system that failed to reach a lot of people, starting with Harlem. We're seed to solution in our thinking and community first in our engagement, and health equity has been our focus for all of the leaders in the organization for some time. I wanted to quickly highlight the difference between medical and adult use. It's the same plant, different medicine, right? Or different markets, I should say. Wave will sell similar regulated New York grown lab tested cannabis products as adult use. It's the same in many ways, but what changes is the consumer base and the clinical support around them. And so I just wanted to highlight on the left side is what the medical market serves. The certified patient, you need a card. Most are managing sleep, pain, anxiety, but also a bunch more. Like, for example, I have early MS. I am a medical cannabis patient in the state. You need to have your card and ID to get in. We have to have a pharmacist on site. We're overseen by the New York State Office of Cannabis Management, but there's now a Center for Cannabis Care and Health Equity, and there's no state excise tax associated with buying medical cannabis. We are allowed to do patient discounts now. And as we look at what's happening at the federal landscape, we're totally anticipating that we'll be able to also in future be covered under some type of insurance. Whereas on the adult use side, on the right side, whereas most others that are going to come before you, if anything, probably all others that have so far, it serves anyone 21 and over. Now, the top 3 reasons, and I know this because I was a regulator over a mature market like Oregon, but the top 3 reasons people shop adult use or recreational is for sleep, pain, and anxiety. So it's still mostly medical reasons that people go there. You only need your ID of 21 and over to get in. There is no pharmacist, it's just a retail associate. And they're not technically allowed to talk about medical issues because they don't have the credentials to do so. The oversight still remains the Office of Cannabis Management, but there's a trade practices bureau that makes sure that the adult use licenses are doing the right thing. And then the adult use side is subject to the state and local excise tax, of which 40% goes back to communities disproportionately impacted, like CB9's area. So the biggest difference is that there's a pharmacist on site, and the model of care is really baked into where we're serving a patient that has an ailment versus someone coming in on their own. Sort of like in a CVS, I could come in and buy Advil on my own without talking to anybody and leave and pay for it, or I could engage with a pharmacist. And so the medical program requires that all medical licensees in the state have a pharmacist in their medical retail. Now, New York built medical first, and a lot of people are, confused out when that happened because there was still a small footprint. But in 2016, there was the first 5. 2017, there was the next 5. And for a long, almost 10 years, there were only 10 registered organizations in the state. Um, Most recently, the OCM approved 8 new ones, and we're included in that 8. What has happened since adult use, though, has started is medical got left behind. And I think Monique called it clearly. You can either go all the way down to Midtown to the one medical that's still in New York, or you could go across to New Jersey, but technically you're not legally allowed to bring the cannabis back into New York, technically. And so we saw a real drop off on the medical patients, almost half now. There are only 39 medical dispensaries in the whole state versus 600 plus adult use. And like I said, they started off with being 10 registered organizations. We're now at 18, but 8 are new and haven't even started yet, like Wave. So only 9 registered organizations are actually operating medical retail today. So not all of them are even doing medical. Our solution is very clear. We want to come to communities and serve. Ultimately, we're going to cultivate our own product, formulate it, obviously serve the community through what we call community wellness hubs. It's not a dispensary. We want to treat the whole person. But we also really want the nucleus to this to be education. My biggest pet peeve, I happen to be a molecular biologist by training, businesswoman by profession, and then a government official in the last 5 years, but we don't have enough public education. And New York City launched a pretty large public education campaign, but still only put a dent in the 8.5 million people that need to learn. Multilingual education is critical, as well as healthcare provider education. And through our programs and work, we're hoping to educate both. So who are we? You kind of met me a little bit, but I want to just ensure that we're pioneers who built the industry. Our average time in the industry is about a decade, with Dr. Rachel Knox and her whole family of doctors being in the cannabis space nearly 15 years, having certified over 60,000 patients in their practice. She is our chief medical officer as well as board director. The co-founder of the company Wave is a former St. John star and a former professional basketball player. He now runs Team First, which is a nonprofit organization in the state of New York that provides public school education and youth services. He's very clearly focused on communities disproportionately impacted, like Harlem. We're both from East Brooklyn. And so when they told us we got 4 dispensaries that we could put in the state, we knew we wanted to put 2 in New York City. And we saw Harlem and East Brooklyn as the 2 biggest areas that we could look at to help fill in the gap of where there might be some holes. And then last but certainly not least, Faye Coleman is already an established licensee. She has a hemp-derived beverage already in the market called Genesis Infused, where she launched a brand with Whoopi Goldberg called Whoop Tea. She also is a licensee in New Jersey, and she and I both are former Target executives during our time pre-cannabis. And so this is a bit of a dream team in some ways in terms of expertise. So we're not really trying to figure out what to do. We know what to do. I bring a lot of the regulatory and business management expertise as a previous consultant to a lot of the largest companies that we just named, but also running the offices for licensing. The biggest thing we'll do is make sure that we will be following the rules and be civically engaged because of my leadership. Our product assortment is going to be very focused. We're going to build products that are around the 3 primary reasons consumers come to cannabis, and they're not small. The pharmaceutical industry sees nearly $500 billion in sales covering sleep, pain, and anxiety. Pain, over 20% of US adults are suffering from some sort of pain management. Sleep, 70 million Americans struggle with chronic sleep issues, and then anxiety and PTSD, over 40 million. And so our mix is really focused on where we see these three areas are of need. So is our education as well. We're going to be very much like other dispensaries in that we'll have flower and pre-rolls, but we'll be very much also looking at tinctures and topicals. Our assortment will have more options in the way of edibles as well. Not everything needs to be a gummy. Especially if you have diabetes, and so there's a lot of product development ideation that we are taking from our 10 years of experience and putting it into our portfolio. Similarly, we hope that our dispensary is also a demonstration of our experience. It's not just a medical cannabis dispensary. On the West Coast, wellness is democratized. And on the East Coast, especially in neighborhoods like CB9's, it isn't very readily accessible. And although cannabis has helped me personally with my early MS, it isn't just cannabis alone that has done that. There have been things from talking to health professionals. So again, we have our licensed pharmacists, the ability to get specially made topicals and tinctures. I started doing a lot of DIY at home over COVID, and it translated to formulations that can be very helpful and made right there on the spot, old school. But meditation and movement and having a green room and physical therapy and yoga, also mental health partners and substance use partners also make our goal of our dispensary much more aspirational to the way medical cannabis should look, given what this plant can do. I always say cannabis is a pharmacy, and we're not even at the beginning stages of really truly understanding it. And so our goal is to really ensure that we're taking the community hand in hand and taking our years of education, both on the science side, the product side, and the community engagement side, and putting it to work right at the dispensary. Now, this is going to require several steps. We just got started, and basically, Dr. Maurice flagged me about your urgency, and we're urgent, kind of trying to figure out where we want to be as well. I also just want to add that outside of the dispensary, I have my own patient log, and it's very handwritten. And so one of the things we've worked on is a patient app, a patient community in your pocket. People don't get to really talk about or engage about how cannabis or certain products made them feel. It allows patient to patient access and community, some product reviews, of course, an educational library. We're also hoping to integrate telemedicine through some of our partners, and of course exclusive products, events, and things of that nature. But our goal is to be a hub in real life and also in the phone if possible. So, like I said, this is a long process. So we don't have a final location to present. And like I said, I think I'll be in front of you multiple times, but I really do appreciate catching you all before you go on break. In just a very short period of time, we've already identified 2 potential locations in the community board 9 area. They would look very different because they're very different in size, but I wanted to be very transparent about what the next steps would be. So there's a location on Broadway that's available. It's very much giving, this could be a landmark medical cannabis location with what we want to do. And a place that actually I could see the state bringing people to look at, to determine, to tour. And I do that, I have done that in my past experience as a government regulator, go to other markets to tour. And so that's what we kind of envisioned there, because it's about 7,500 square feet across 3 floors. Right now, I think there's a pediatrics office there. One of the things that I automatically check is how close are we to a dispensary, where are the places of worship, and where are the schools. And so you'll see green next to place of worship and school because we meet the guidelines for the state in our distance if we are at that location. However, in order to be at that location, we would have to ask for a public convenience and advantage waiver because we are within 1,000 feet of another dispensary. Fortunately, we are not within 500 feet because then it would be not at all available, but we are within 1,000. And since we are a medical cannabis only operator and retail location, like we're not doing both, we'd actually have a pretty high chance of getting approved at this point, given the shortage of them in the state. again, I'm just trying to be as transparent as possible because we're at the very, very beginning stages. Literally, I just reached out to find out more and to get a gauge on what the interest is and being able to have our cannabis dispensary there. The
So
other
Rashida,
location,
quick
yes,
comment. I didn't mean to
no,
cut you off.
no problem.
It happens to be, I guess, advantageous, if you will. The owner of Midnight Moon is here this evening. He comes to our meetings quite, every time we have one. And he's one of the first legal dispensaries that opened up in Community Board 9.
I
Yeah.
do remember that as well. And so, yeah, no, I think that that is advantageous because that was also our next step. While we are applying, we would actually want to reach out to Midnight Moon to indicate that we're going to apply. So now he's aware that if we were to look at any of these locations, both of them are within the 500 to 1,000 foot of the dispensary. And then I guess the second location is closer. It is not as much favored by us, but it is certainly easier to do. It's currently a physical therapy office and has some mixed use, so it gives us enough space to build out something at retail, but still have some movement. It would be what I would call a baby starter hub in some ways. It falls within the rules for place of worship and school. It is like what we would consider a first footprint. I don't know that we would be able to stay there based on how many people we intend to serve in this capacity, but I think that it's something that we had to at least look at because it does qualify again for potential PCA. Um, Again, very, very early. My goal is to kind of signal that we're interested in trying to find areas that, here in CB9. I've done a lot of work with CB10 as well. And so I will just be very transparent and flag that we're looking there, but haven't necessarily found anything. And we have not talked to the community and have served on several panels for them. And so our goal is really to kind of just start the process to see what's feasible and what makes the most sense based off of what we're trying to build out. I will just be very transparent and say our intention is to be a responsible neighbor, a good neighbor. We're medical only. There's no consumption. I think we kind of have to reiterate that even for some of the adult use, because most of the adult use, like there's no consumption anywhere in the state legally yet. There will be consumption added on, but not necessarily for us. We're looking for a retail only experience. We're tasked to do the same level of security, with the only addition is that we have to have a medical cannabis card for someone to buy. We'll have guards at the front as typical 24/7 monitor cameras, which is again the typical security requirements, and then the ID check of entry. We have to create an incident plan that we coordinated with the local precinct. Again, I'm happy that I've done enough events in the city that I'm familiar at least with how to interact with them. But the goal, again, is to have clinical hours and typical queue management and flow. We do want to have community facing events, and they'll likely be in partnership with the local organizations, the community board, government agencies, and the like. And then I put across the bottom in bigger letters, because I want to be clear, we're very civically engaged. Myself and Ty have spent a lot of time on the ground being civically engaged in New York at the local level and at the state level. So we intend on not just doing this for when we open, kind of like I would say the other dispensary owner who's there. We want to remain engaged with CB9 and the bid, as well as local and state offices. This is the only way that the market grows and with the same intention, and that education continues to build as well. And then this is really my last slide before any questions, but I'm hoping that you all can, join us in building the wellness that, can reach this community. I feel like among many communities, we've all been waiting for it. Adult use didn't quite roll out as expected. I lived through it as a government lead, and it was very tough. And the biggest thing was trying to explain and provide public education around what was happening with the illegal stores versus the legal stores. And now that some of that has gotten a little bit figured out, now will next be the phase of explaining an adult use model, which is still important, and I fought for it, right? Versus a medical cannabis model in this state that requires pharmacists and several other clinical touch points to round out the wellness. And I wanted to make sure that you had both myself and Ty's contact information. His daughter is actually playing in Wimbledon, so this is why he didn't join us today, as he has a pro tennis daughter. But we're really excited about our opportunity to support unserved and underserved communities. That's the last thing I'll say. The stipulation for our licensing, the new 8, is that we have to put our retail stores in unserved or underserved locations. And based off of the number of dispensaries you already have, which are 3 and a pending 1, so that's like 3 and a possible if you're playing spades, but 4 for the amount of people that live in CB9, and 0 medical dispensaries, you are underserved. You're not unserved because you have dispensaries, but you are underserved. So with that being said, I will escape my presentation and stop sharing so that I can answer some questions. And again, I'm looking forward to connecting with you all more as we go down this journey. It's been a long process, though, for sure.
So I'll hold my questions. I'll let others ask questions first, if there are any questions. So yeah, let's open it up for questions. Huh, that's done.
This is Leo with Midnight Moon. My question is just if you have a sense of timing for the opening of the medical dispensary. I think it's a great idea. 3332 Broadway is a very nice location for the hub. And I do agree that the focus on education is key, right? Even on the recreational side, there's a lot of customers that come in and they lack a solid understanding of cannabis and its benefits. So something like your solution will be very welcomed in the community. But if you have a sense of timing of when you plan to launch or renovate or anything like that, would be awesome.
Well, that's a great question. I would say OCM has a sense of timing. After they did a big update on all of the medical regulations. I believe you all made comment on some of them. And so after that, they've kind of put us under a pressure of getting operational in the next 6 months. It doesn't mean necessarily Harlem. Like I said, we have to up to 4 stores, and we're looking elsewhere outside of New York City. But when we look at these 2 locations, both are relatively turnkey. And if the financial piece works, I think we could at least see ourselves in this, final back half of the year. 1, go through the approval process of the PCA. That's going to take time. And then 2, then actually, stock the shelves. So I still can't see it happening before Q4, if I'm being perfectly frank. I think that would be generous based off of how OCM
So can you translate that?
I can't see it happening before October 2026 because of the way the process is for OCM. The fact that we would have to get a PCA waiver means that there are just a couple of additional steps that require going back in front of the Cannabis Control Board for approval. But I am doing, I'm doing the work every day. So, visited the location, understand that we would get it as a white box. They're, more interested in renting it individually, of course, because that's typically how it's been. But we may be able to do something with, better with all of the space. So, in that realm, it's been just the negotiation phase, just to be completely transparent. Yeah, that's why I feel like this is super early. But because I worked in government, I feel like once Dr. Maurice Hinson connected me with the task force, it almost felt serendipitous to say, you already were looking at Harlem. You've been talking to Deborah for a long time about it. Why not, at least start the process? And so we're starting it hopefully now. And hopefully you'll see us again, maybe after you come back from break.
So I see Carolyn's hand up, but the Sheeta mentioned Deborah, so that would be Deborah Levine from City College, our Harlem Health Initiative. And I know Aracela is on. So Aracela, after Carolyn asks her question, if you want to make comment or even ask a question yourself, please do so. All right, go ahead, Carolyn. You're mute.
Yeah.
Did I unmute her?
Okay. I
Is
was
on it now?
thinking about
Carolyn?
the. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Okay,
Yeah.
a little bit.
Yeah. Oh, I don't know what
No,
to
go
do to
ahead.
make it louder. But yeah, I was thinking about the last meeting we had with is Dr. Henson,
Mhm.
and
Uh-huh.
one of the things that um, he discussed was the different strengths of marijuana that was available now. And he had also said he was talking a lot about the chemicals that are in marijuana. And one of the things that he said, I think, is that the kind of marijuana that we have now is stronger than what existed, let's say, when people were using it casually in the past. And so I was a little confused about how, when you're in a medical marijuana situation, how do you know what the various chemicals are that are in that particular batch of marijuana?
Well, that's a great question. Everyone for medical and adult use, there are required labeling uh, their labeling requirements is the better way to say it that the state outlines. I would say on the medical side, I tend to outline more, including the terpenes and including any of the other ingredients to make it. So if you made your gummies with pectin, which is a type of sugar, versus with gelatin, which usually has a meat base. I'm vegan, so basically, so I know that. But essentially, we're required to upload a lot of that information into the state's seed to sale system, and a lot of that is on the label itself. But I think that's why we want to lead with or have a nucleus of education. Um, I would say by and large, I don't disagree with Dr. Maurice. I call him Dr. Maurice because he's a friend, but Dr. Henson. And in that we have stronger preparations of cannabis now, stronger delivery mechanisms. A vape cannot be smoked the same way a joint would because a vape has a much higher potency than what's in a joint. And a large part of what I think is missing, and in some ways the adult use market is not allowed to touch as much, is that distinction, teaching about dosage and potency. Believe it or not, it's not much more than kind of regular math, but we've been living in the world of OZs and ounces and eighths, and we don't actually talk about the metrics behind cannabis much. But we'll be required to, because there'll be a pharmacist on site. We'll be required to know and monitor in a much more focused way than adult use, how many milligrams you're typically taking when you are taking a particular product. And we'll be able to recommend it with a little bit more of the, again, ailments and or issues around it, because technically, according to the regulations, adult use is not allowed to necessarily talk about medical issues, even though people are coming in there like, I need something to sleep, and then they'll direct them. In this case, you'll be able to talk to a pharmacist about it, and we'll be able to provide, here are some options. And hopefully with the app, you'll also be able to say that worked, or I had to take 2 gummies. And so we know now where your dosage was, and we can maybe recommend something that might be a little bit stronger. But I have the philosophy of, start low, go slow. I think everybody kind of says that. It means start with the lowest possible dosage, and then you increase slowly up as you need for any ailment. So, I mean, it is one of those things where we have a lot of rules to follow in New York on what goes on a package. That's usually a telltale sign as well of a difference between an illegal product or a product not from our state versus a product from our state.
Okay. Um, Araceli, do you have any questions or comment to make from the Harlem Health Initiative? Are you there? um, well, I have 2 questions. So,
Heather's arm just went up, just so you know.
oh, okay. Heather, do you want to ask your question? Because it might be the same one I want to ask. Heather?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Ms. Dawson, can you just help us understand? I'm trying to understand your relationship to Harlem, this Harlem community board. Do you have a existing presence? What borough or what community do you currently reside in personally? You mentioned
Yes.
that you lived out west, you came back, you said you have a government affiliated background.
Yes. So when I got appointed to oversee New York City, I moved back to New York. I'm originally from East New York, Brooklyn, which is one of 8 neighborhoods that represented the 80% of the prison population during the height of the war on drugs. I came back to New York particularly to do the job of overseeing the cannabis industry because New York arrested more people than any other state in the country, and New York City was the arrest capital of that. A large part of my work while I was in government was spanning the 5 boroughs, and Harlem, in particular, CB10 was one of my biggest partners. It's how I met Deborah, and a lot of the education on the ground in Harlem really came out of our office. It was one of the identified underserved areas that also overlapped with community disproportionately impacted as it pertains to arrests. And so my tie to Harlem is really just understanding the demographic, understanding the history of cannabis criminalization in the state, and how it's familiar to what some neighborhoods in Brooklyn, East New York in particular, experience, and how it continues to be unserved and largely uneducated around cannabis as medicine. And so that's really what I wanted to identify. I have, a lot of, I guess, professional contacts in Harlem, but I don't live there. I have just enjoyed it as a New Yorker, of course. Being from Brooklyn is probably one of the few places in Manhattan that we're gonna probably hang out if you're from Brooklyn. But yeah, I think at this point I'm looking at it strategically at what the state needs because that's the way they've asked us to look at it. And Harlem is significantly under served as it pertains to cannabis and unserved as it pertains to medical cannabis because of the lack of the medical cannabis dispensary.
Are there any medical cannabis facilities in your community where you reside? I'm just
No,
curious. Okay, so I'm just wondering why you would target another community rather than your own first.
I actually am looking at my own as well. Like I said, we have up to 4 dispensaries that are within our license. And we identified that we wanted out the gate that 2 of them would be in downstate in New York City, and 2 will be other places in New York that are unserved or underserved. And myself and Ty are both from Brooklyn. And so that made sense naturally for us to put a dispensary or a location in Brooklyn. So we are looking as well for one of our dispensaries. Another one of our dispensaries would be in Harlem. So one of 4 dispensaries would be in Harlem. So no matter what, we're going to have to target locations outside of our neighborhoods because we wouldn't put a second dispensary in our same neighborhood.
It's one thing that was interesting from your slide, and you indicated that there has to be a pharmacist on site. Um, why is it that medical cannabis can't be sold at an existing pharmacy if a pharmacist is required?
Well, the medical cannabis program in New York is one of the only programs in the country that required a pharmacist on site. The reason it's not sold in other pharmacies has to do with the federal laws. It was most recently done in a federal order that medical cannabis is now a Schedule 3. So technically, what we sell will be federally legal as a Schedule 3. However, it's a long process, and the DEA just started it. Prior to that, though, if a pharmacy tried to sell cannabis, they would be selling a Schedule 1 on the Controlled Substances Act and then be subject to potentially losing their license for that location. And so what I'm saying is the New York law. New York law requires medical cannabis dispensaries must have a pharmacist on site, a licensed
Does
pharmacist on
does
site.
that pharmacist have to have any specific training that is different from their training that they would have if they worked at a Walgreens or a CVS, for an example?
I would say probably for the other ROs, No, it's just baseline. You need to be a pharmacist. But if you're going to work with a doctor that's been doing this for 15 years and it comes from a whole family of doctors, and people who have real cannabis science experience, we're going to work with pharmacists that have cannabis science experience, of which we have identified quite a few. Part of our network is the Association for Cannabis Health Equity and Medicine. It's a BIPOC health equity and cannabinoid medicine health professionals association. We have at least 6 doctors, pharmacists in New York that have previous experience, previous training, in addition to their pharmacy training. So our goal is not to go backwards, right? We want to start with the people who actually do have cannabis science experience.
I just wanted to interject here, if I'm not mistaken, and Dashida, you can correct me, or even Leo. My understanding is the OCM has a program set up that if you're a provider, and I think or a pharmacist, you can be certified. So you have to go through an additional level of training in order to be classified and certified to do that. Is that correct? You understanding?
You're talking about the health professionals that get to give people the medical card. You are going through a certification, and usually your pharmacist inside the dispensary should have gone through that. I can't speak for other medical operators, but I would say for us, at minimum, they would have gone through that. But more likely, based off of our network, we're dealing with people who have at least four to five, maybe even 6 years of previous cannabis science experience. Either they worked as a pharmacist in another medical market, or they've been trained in that way.
Leo, I had looked at you. I didn't know if you wanted to say anything. Okay, so, okay, those were good questions from Heather. My question to you, Dashida, I just wanted to be clear. You say you have the opportunity to open up 4 in New York State or New York City? I just want to clarify.
New York State. So this is a state license. We don't have to open any stores in New York City. We could do all 4 elsewhere, but we're from New York City, and it actually is one of the most underserved areas of the state.
So the goal then is to pop 2 in New York City in downstate, potentially 1 in Harlem and the other in Brooklyn. Okay. Now, Araceli, you have your hand up? Did you want to make a comment or add anything to the discussion?
I did. Thank you, Monique. Apologies, I had some mic issues earlier. But thank you, Dashida, for a very informative presentation. I am coming from the CUNY School of Public Health and Health Policy alongside Deborah Levine. And a lot of the focus of our work, especially our work with our graduate students, is creating cannabis-ready public health professionals. So I appreciate that you're bringing up that educational aspect. I think you kind of answered my question earlier that I was going to pose. First of all, we would love to have further conversations about what educational initiatives could look like. You spoke to this a little bit earlier, and for my own curiosity, I was just wondering, in terms of the work that you are doing, what gaps in education you are seeing.
Sure. So are we talking about consumer gaps, or are we talking about health provider gaps?
Oh, great question. I think I am interested in consumer gaps. I think because in the past we've done cannabis equity research around like knowledge, attitudes, and beliefs that are within our communities. And so as we're approaching the medical market, what are maybe some areas of information that could use strengthening in the amplification of the science around medical use and medical access?
Gotcha. Well, the first thing is, the consumer is subject to how this plant has been regulated. So I always try to say that we have to break the mindset of just because the government said X doesn't mean that that is congruent with the science or the research. For example, the government has said for 50 years that cannabis is illegal, and now we're actively clawing it back, right? So sometimes regulation is about policy and about position of the time, and science is science. So it kind of is timeless in some ways, although we're still learning. And so I literally learn something new about cannabis I feel like every day. But biggest issues I talked about a little bit, dosage versus potency, understanding the delivery mechanisms. It is not the same thing to smoke a joint versus eating an edible. It goes through two different metabolic processes, and you feel it in different times. So we teach a lot about duration and onset. You need to know, if I take this, how long will it be in my system? How long will I feel this potential effect? The other thing is, it's not just about THC and CBD. We have hundreds of molecules in the plant. And it is a pharmacy. So that's why we kind of got to be careful. But we're having a rise of CBN and CBG and CBC. So we start teaching the CBs, if you will. I'd like people to know directionally, when they look at a formula and see what's in it, what it's generally used for. Since the endocannabinoid system is very specific to each person's body, the third thing I will say is teaching people how to do a little trial and error. The reason why we wanted the app is because I myself, again, spent a good amount of years trial and error with early MS, and I had it in my notebook like this. And I feel like if you could have something that you could just keep track of what you're taking, remember those type of dosage, it just makes it a lot easier and a lot faster to get to what really works for the various ailments that you have. So it's a work in progress. And then the last thing I'll say is, it's the 4th to 8th grade reading level. Like, when we start getting too sciencey, we lose a lot of people, even the health professionals, real talk. And so we kind of try to keep it very simple. But it is a complex system in our body. And we are learning a lot of complex science, but some of it is simple, and we're hoping to figure out ways to distill it for people.
I
Thank you
have a
for that.
follow. Sorry, Araceli, are you finished?
Yes, I was just going to say thank you for that, and I appreciate the health literacy aspect.
Yes, I do too, actually. I wanted to follow up on Aracela's question in terms of the education for medical providers, because once again, that's a part of the problem and the challenge. There aren't enough providers who are certified in order to make it accessible. And I don't know if there's anything you can say to speak to that, even though you have your own provider that you're working with that's been uh, steeped in doing the research and the work for some time. But it seems like there's also a issue around, I don't know if it's provider education or logistics around being certified. I don't know if you can speak to that.
I can. First, I will say Dr. Rachel Knox is one of the largest, like, medical provider educators as well in the world. So she's taught so many people, and her family. Her mom is also a doctor, Dr. Janice Knox. They're all Googleable. They've been on Good Day America. They're the reason I came to cannabis, honestly. But we were required by the state to also submit a practitioner education and engagement plan. And so, even though we have our people that we are required to have on staff, they're not really providers. We can't give a medical card out at the dispensary. People who have medical cards can access the dispensary, but they must go to another provider for that. And we
Yeah,
can help
I'm sorry.
train them.
When I asked the question, maybe I said it in a confusing way, so forgive me. I meant strictly by provider medical doctors and why the education they might require versus just people needing to get the medical card in order to access the medical cannabis.
Gotcha. Yes. No, the medical doctors need a lot of education, and we've been trying to infiltrate AMA. I myself have spoken at the American Health Law Association. So we go to their conferences to teach often, but I think what our goal is with WAVE is to really, as part of the hub, create a network, if you will, of medical cannabis providers, particularly people of color and or multilingual, because we feel like that's the biggest gap. Let's be honest, if my grandmother had gone into, and she's no longer with us, so I use her as an example, but if she had gone into emergency room and she's engaging with a white doctor, it doesn't matter how much cannabis was helping her, she's not going to tell that doctor that she's using cannabis based off of her decades of experience with the criminalization. But that is not the right thing, because THC and other cannabinoids have interactions with other things that she may get. So I would want her to tell her doctor. And the best way to do that is to have doctors that look like her, speak the same language, and the like. And so that's our goal, is to really build that network. I think New York has fallen a little short there, and that's where we'll lean on more of our national networks. And then the people that we have on staff, they're part of local chapters as well. And our goal is for them to educate those folks. That's not competition. That actually increases our potential patient population. Right now, less than 2% of the state is even a patient, but all of these ailments really are a good percentage of people. So we're missing out an opportunity to teach and to provide other alternatives to wellness products. But
So less than 2% would be considered medical cannabis eligible?
yeah, and I would say even smaller than that, but yeah, less than 2% are actual patients. It might be smaller because we dropped from 150 to 75K. So I actually think I'm using an outdated stat.
Wow. Okay. Wow. And it's been out now for how long? Many years?
10 years. And since cannabis legalized for adult use, it has basically cut the whole program in half by the number of patients. That was not what the state wanted to do. So what they did was they appointed a medical director as well. Her name is Dr. June Chin. I've worked with her for years. She used to be on the board for the Association for Cannabis Health Equity and Medicine, or ACAM. She's worked with Dr. Rachel. She's trained under Dr. Rachel. So she's very excited for us to come. But I say all that to say, New York is finally getting a bit more serious. We just started, the state is the first in the country to do a clinical trial. So there's an irritable bowel syndrome trial that they're right now open and looking for potential patients, that's being run by the state. And New York is also the first state to have a cannabis research license as well, which we are allowed to apply for and add on as we want to do research at where we will cultivate, which is likely going to be out of New York City. Just
Got it. So that's a big deal too, the research license, because then they
yeah.
can do more studying. Um, um, Heather, you can ask a question, but before I go to you, Randy, did you have a question? Okay. We don't hear you, so but I think you said no.
Got a picture.
I'm new to this. No, I have no question. I'm just very
Okay.
impressed with her. She's very beautiful.
Oh, thank you, Randy.
No
Okay.
problem.
So, all right, go ahead, Heather.
Hi, Ms. Dawson again. How is medical cannabis dispensed, and what product forms are you proposing?
Sure. So, medical cannabis is sold in a dispensary, much in the same fashion that adult use is, with the exception that there is a pharmacist on site and a requirement for you to have a medical cannabis card certifying you as a patient.
I mean the product form. That's what
Yeah.
I want to know. What do they get if they come in with a card? What
Mhm.
do they get? What is the
So
format of your
the
product?
forms are the same. Flour is available. They added flour to the medical program about 6, 7 years ago. Vapes and or concentrates like hash, topicals, tinctures, as well as edibles, which includes beverages in that category. Our goal is to focus our flower assortment on strains that are really focused on sleep, pain, and anxiety, or some mixture of. And then when we look at the edibles, we're looking at formulations that, again, are sleep, pain, anxiety, and focus. And then topicals and tinctures are typically a very, very small percentage of the adult use market, although important. And people do come, it's very niche, if you will. And so our expectation is that they will be a larger percentage of our assortment, because we would be able to on site make customized topicals and tinctures using some oil preparations. It is something that we haven't seen done in the market. I want to try to do as much stuff as we can that are customized where we can. But yeah, we will probably have about 20% of our assortment in topicals and tinctures, which is not what a normal adult use dispensary would have.
Carolyn, I'm sorry.
I did want to just add one more question for just the sake of information for our licensee in the audience here. what I've learned from being on the regulator side is that the more educated the consumer is, the more of a shopper they are. So, in some ways, if we're able to educate them by having a medical cannabis hub, they become a much more involved shopper on the adult use side. I can speak to my own personal in that I will shop medical and I'm also going to adult use as well because I just want to see everything and see what is going to work best for me. I will have more knowledge and ask more questions in the adult use market. I may even demand more variety in adult use market, but ultimately it winds up usually creating a bigger basket. But that is the experience we've had on the West Coast. We don't know yet what's going to happen on the East Coast because New York has decided, mostly the medical operators, to shrink their business and only go for adult use. And I think that's wrong.
Okay, Carolyn?
Yeah, I have an article that just came out this week about research on cannabis, and one of the things that it says is there hasn't been enough research to know which cannabis is too much for the brain. There's that research has not been done, and there are some. They're saying that it's entered the mainstream without without any shared rules or routines. It's unlike alcohol because now they're, you might listen to how they're advising that even one drink a week or a day increases your chance of mortality. But they were just saying that we don't know how much is too much in terms of a person's brain. And it's the article. I'm going to send it. It's just I don't know how to extract all the ads that interrupt it because it was in the Washington Post. But one of the things it says is that the mental health benefits are overstated, and that was an article in Journal of the American Medical Association, and it said that things like PTSD, anxiety, depression, bipolar, etc., does not support the use of cannabis for any of them. And so I think this is just one. This is one recent study which involves I don't know how many people, but I can circulate it so that you can look at. Because this one of the things that I was concerned about is that since it's so recently being released in the general public, that the research hasn't caught up with it yet, which makes sense because it takes a long time, especially the way the federal government is cutting back on medical research funding. So we have a lot of sort of common sense notions of things about it, but one of the things they do know is about what happens to the brain of young people. So that's apparently a major. That's something that is proven by some of the research, but for adults, it isn't clear. And so I guess we'll find out more as more and more research is being done. But it's a little bit scary to think that we don't know. We don't know how much is too much for a brain. I
Certainly,
guess.
I agree with you. Again, my background is I'm a molecular biologist by training. And so I do think of this as a science first. I think America is behind. So at this point in my career, I've been to Canada, Thailand, Austria, Germany, and they have a lot of medical cannabis research because they've just been further along. When something is federally illegal, it's nearly impossible to study. I just mentioned the American Medical Association was one of the biggest nuts to crack because the model is based on pharmaceutical care. And I also indicated that just on sleep, pain, and anxiety alone, if cannabis can be an alternative, it would disrupt nearly $500 billion in pharmaceutical drugs that treat sleep, pain, and anxiety. Now, listen, I'm not going to be the person to say the US has done everything that they need to prove everything that we would like
I
to be
think we
seen
have.
in a study, but I do know that cannabis has been medically available for 30 years. 1996 is when California legalized medical cannabis. In that time, there have been people like myself who use cannabis all day long to remain functional. And yeah, I think we now are at the point where we've got millions of anecdotes that we are using our common sense knowledge to be able to keep making more states legal. We now have the United States living under more people living under a medical or adult use cannabis framework than
Yeah,
not.
that's what they said.
And adult use has been around for almost 15 years, with Colorado legalizing in 2012. So even though our research has not caught up, what we do have is a lot of government reports. We are tracking public safety. We're tracking public health. New York hasn't gotten there, but I can share Colorado reports from fellow regulators, as well as Oregon and other states where, again, many people live and consume regularly, and we're able to share those details. I think what's the biggest shame is that in some ways I feel like it's a human rights issue. This has been something that has been medicine well before that it was deemed a drug. Nixon knew it was. He ordered a group of doctors to do research. It's called the Schaefer Report. That report came back and told him not to put it on the CSA. And he said, well, listen, cannabis will allow me, or marijuana will allow me to break up the Black nationalists as well as the civil rights movement and sympathetic white hippies. So we're going to make it illegal. And that was a policy decision. This is all written and this is history. And that is why New York's law has a preamble to it about why the government did something wrong all those years and why we have to now right those wrongs. And so I agree, we don't have enough research. As a scientist, I want more. That's why I chose to get a medical license, and I did not choose to pursue the adult use market. The adult use market needs to be there. You shouldn't have to get a medical card to get cannabis, but I think a medical dynamic needs to be there for people like yourself, people like myself, who want to dive in a little bit deeper, use it with a little bit more intentionality, and awareness. That's the best answer I have, but I am here make sure that we continue the education. So
I think
I'll share my report.
one thing that it does say is that it might help with Alzheimer's because of how it functions with the energy inside of the cells of the brain, and so that's they said that the CBN appeared to help protect neurons by preserving mitochondrial function. So it looks like it could be some use, and I hope that they'll do more experiments to, if that's the case, that would really be helpful. So, but this is just a sign of how new the research is.
Yeah, absolutely. Leo, did you want to say something?
Well, just one other question. When it comes to the hub, do you need to have a medical card to get access to the hub in order for all the educational benefit? Or can someone without you're on mute right now, or someone without a medical card, can they go in to learn, potentially get a medical card if that's something that they want in the future?
Yes, so we can have people access the location without a medical card. They can't buy unless they have one. We may even set up, depending on the size, that there's certain parts of the dispensary that only a medical card would allow, versus the community area. So it would be more open to community. We still would have to take an ID when people come in, as you know, the rules, but not necessarily have to have a card. And we're not allowed to do the cards on site. At least that's the last I checked the regs. We wrote about that. And I think part of it was because they didn't want a monopoly like the pharmaceutical industry a little bit, where the pharmaceutical industry is pushing the doctors to write the scripts, kind of. So we are allowed to sponsor and support another community organization doing a medical card drive. So like Dr. Maurice Hinson, for example, one of the first times we worked together, he came and did a medical card education and drive, and he signed up people and got them certified. We could potentially sponsor an event like that, but we wouldn't be able to host it in the dispensary.
Thank you.
I mean, yeah, because once again, if there are no providers in the community who are certified, then how can people get medical cards? So that's a whole.
Yes, we'll have to do that first. Yeah.
I totally get it. Yeah. All right, Heather, we're gonna let you ask your question. You'll be the last question, and then we'll move on.
I guess I have some concern about the THC and its, impact on psychosis. Is the dosage being regulated or determined by, I guess, the prescribing physician or whoever that prescriber is, or is that being determined at the medical dispensary location? How are you regulating the dosage and tracking what is working for people medically?
So this is a twofold question. It's a great question, though. On the one hand, there is the certifying doctor can give a recommendation, not a prescription, because again, just the federal legalities, but they can give a recommendation on what they think the patient should be taking. But by and large, it's very patient directed. And when they come in, they'll share what's going on with the pharmacist on site, and the pharmacist provides recommendations about what in the assortment would help with what they need. At which time, once a patient buys something, it's in our system, our back-end system, where we know the patient information, what they bought previously, and our hope is that they also use the app. Again, that's where the patient directed is important. And the combination of it works very similar to when someone is discharged from a hospital and they have to kind of make their way through what they've been given. We will do our best to also provide instructions. That's something, again, not necessarily, you're not going to get a printout with the adult use experience, whereas with ours, our goal would be, if wanted, it would either come on the app or in a printout on the recommendation on how to take what the person purchased. But a large part of it comes in the dispensary between the pharmacist and the patient.
Yeah, thank you. I'm just concerned about the balance and how we balance the harm that, can come from this. Especially, we have a huge mental health, issue in our community, and just have to try to figure out a way to balance that, and then adding more to it with something, a known chemical compound that can increase psychosis. Thank you.
Okay. I think a very good discussion, a thoughtful discussion, and so, Dashita, I guess you shared with us, because that would have been one of my questions, what locations were you thinking about? You shared, and of course we asked for you to keep us updated, and I'm sure when you go to apply, you'll have to probably end up coming before us again.
Yes.
Right? I can
Yes.
assume that, okay. Not as many people are engaged in this meeting, but because it's being recorded and we'll share minutes, we'll ask people on our board and throughout the community to listen in on the recording so they can hear everything that you shared, because we're about getting the information out there and helping people become better educated so that they can be better consumers, more educated consumers, if this is something that they choose to partake in. So you're welcome to stay. We're not going to be on much longer. We only have 2 more items on the agenda. This is probably one of our shorter agendas, which is why you had the opportunity to give a really fully formed presentation. And I want to thank you once again for coming and sharing with us and educating us and thinking about us.
Yes.
And you mentioned CUNY, and they have been a diligent partner as well in terms of trying to help educate our community. And we look forward to continuing trying to get the information out. On the agenda, the next item that I wanted to reference very quickly is actually old business, and it was a few months ago actually that we did a letter of support regarding another one of the regulations from OCM. It was Regulation 117, I believe. Hold on. It focused on pop-up shops or pop-up events that might potentially have cannabis present. We wrote a long letter of comment to OCM stating basically, and I think the letter, it should have been in your packet and shared.
Yeah.
We basically said that just like people seeking legal dispensary licenses have to come before the community board, we said in this letter the same thing has to happen. That anybody who wants to be involved in a pop-up event, they need to come before the community board, give us enough advance notice so that we can question and understand what their intentions are. And so I know that was brought up in the meeting last month, or should have been brought up by my co-chair. The reason I bring this up now is because OCM recently created forms and made those forms available to individuals who might be interested in scheduling a pop-up event. They have to go through OCM and complete a form to indicate, almost like a notice to municipality, similar to what they do when they come to us now. And then they have another form, Cannabis Showcase Event. That was sent to you. I mean, I could pull it up, but I believe it was sent as an attachment. And I was sharing it with all of you as an FYI to let you know that these two forms have become available since May 4th. People who are interested in doing a pop-up event can fill out this form and bring it to our attention moving forward. So this is more of an FYI to all of you on the call. By the way, Geraldine, you're on. You didn't ask any questions, so I'm assuming that the questions you might have had were asked by our other two neighbors or residents. Okay.
Is she still there? I don't know.
Okay. I don't know either. So.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. What I wanted to add in terms of the old business, now going to new business. The task force created a questionnaire. I think that was also in your attachment. When we first started talking about adult use and potential legal dispensary owners coming to us, we said that the municipality form that they sent us was good for notification purposes, but it wasn't adequate enough to ask questions of the potential owner. And so we had a questionnaire that we had created asking more extensive questions pertaining to, the security procedures that establishment would have, if they had ownership, a percentage of ownership the person coming before us had, and a few other questions in terms of other things that I know we were concerned about when we did this form. It seems like now almost 3 or 4 years ago. It could be as far back as 5. But now with these pop-ups, we're looking to revise this form to add a few questions, 1 or 2 more questions regarding pop-ups. What that means. What are they going to do to make sure that if they're going to participate in a pop-up event, how are they going to control the dispensement or the access to cannabis product and such. So I'm just once again sharing that with you as an FYI. The new business in this section will be updating our questionnaire so that we can get add or ask those questions when it comes to pop-up events. So once that's done, we'll share it with everyone so that they can see it. And if there are comments in terms of what's on there, you'll let us know. And that's it, basically. I think we had a good meeting. I think it was very engaging, informative. And as I said, this is our last one for now. We'll be around. We'll keep monitoring the OCM website to see what other regulations might come through. If any, like I said, dispensary potential owners express an interest, they'll notify our office, and our office will let us know, and we'll follow up. And that's it. I want to wish everyone a happy summer, a safe and happy summer, and stay out of trouble. And now that the Nick chaos is over, we can resume normalcy. Yeah. Right, Carolyn? That last game, Carolyn was behind me at a watch party, and she was so calm. I can't believe it. I'm sure. I hope, Carolyn, You don't think ill of me. I used a few little curse words at the watch party, but anyway, but they won.
too.
That's what it counts, huh?
I did too. It was
Yeah,
really fun.
it was fun.
Yeah. Oh, boy.
I'm gonna call the meeting to close, and the time is going to be 8:15. So as with that said, thank you all. We'll work on the
Yes.
minutes to get them out.
Okay.
Carolyn, send me the article so when the minutes are
am.
drafted, we can send that out to everybody.
Yeah, I'm trying to
Okay,
get
everyone,
them
be
done.
safe.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Randy,
everybody.
your child was so adorable. We saw a peek of him.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I have a
No,
big
you didn't have to
family.
come off. We were I enjoyed seeing him. So
Thank you
good.
so much. Thank you. Thank
Okay.
you.
All right,
Have a nice
everybody.
summer. I hope
Okay,
to see you
Be
bye-bye,
soon.
safe.
everybody.
Okay.
Be safe,
Thank
everybody. Take care.
All right,
Bye bye.
bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Right. Okay.
All right. So to stop the recording, I hit the X, right?
Or you can just end the meeting.
So the and right there. Okay. There you go. So.